Okay. Okay. If you can't see me before, I'm sorry. Welcome to Jason Cross Reads Books, my first broadcast for this channel. And as I'm hoping you are all aware of, this is my discussion on Fahrenheit 451. I don't know how to show it on the screen, but I'll show you on my phone. So here is the book. And then this is the movie that I am comparing it to, and also discussing it as its own and separate, because both have their own meanings, and some there's differences between the two media, and both I enjoyed and think that they do have their own messages that are some are different from each other, and that are definitely the same messages. Uh, Looks like oh, hi Drew from Drew's Book Reviews. Thank you very much for joining in. Yes, so again, this is my first live stream. I've decided to do this one as a live stream rather than doing it as its own video, for a couple reasons. One, I get to do a live stream. Two, I just have not been able to really edit very well. I do have two videos that I did record. One that has been taking a very long time to edit because it is the first one that I am doing on my own. And when I work for a half hour trying to edit it, I feel like I've accomplished something, and then realize that I've only made my video go from 30 minutes to 28 minutes. So working for a half hour is only taking 2 minutes off of the total runtime, um, or making it where it's uh, usable. Or I'm really saying that wrong. Where I only have where I go from where I only get like 3 minutes of usable um, record or video, and still have a lot of stuff to edit out. But anyway, that's a different story. But back to Fahrenheit 451. I'll go through the bit of a summary of both the movie, and the book. First with the book, and I'll keep it to no spoilers for the beginning, and then it will get into spoilers later on. I'll let you know when it does. So for the book, the book follows in the movie. They follow the character of Guy Montag. He is a fireman, and this is and it doesn't exactly specify when the book takes place, but it is sometime in the future. And one of the lines that it said was from the book was that there had been a one of the atomic wars had started in 2022, which is kind of, we're in 2022 now, so that's a bit concerning. But yeah, so it's in the future. Guy Montag's a fireman, and instead of the traditional fireman roles that we know now, where firemen put out fires, they start fires specifically in houses that contain books, just like people call in to report a fire. and firemen come out, people snitch on their neighbors, and firemen go to the houses, get all of the books, burn the books along with the person's house, and then arrest the perpetrator. So guys, he's pretty comfortable in his life, and then he meets this teenage young woman named Clarice, who tips his world upside down a little bit, makes him view his life in a different means, and then from there, he sees what society has become, and he does what he can to rebel against what society has become, and he's going he uses his position as a fireman to he rebels and trying to, and meets some people along the way, or people that he has met before, who guide him in asking the important questions, and seeing through what society's become. He tries to do what he can to bring books back into life, but right now society just it's on a downwards curve to collapse, and towards the end it's more of a waiting game of waiting for his turn to bring books back. In some of the other analysis videos and things I've read online, definitely said that it's clearly a book that's showing the dangers of censorship, and but it goes beyond just the censorship in terms of what like one of the videos that I did see, Ray Bradbury, the author of the book, I forgot to mention that he had written a piece on his own that saying that Fahrenheit 451 was not so much a critique on censorship, more of a critique on mass media, the evolution of mass media, and the movies and radio and television their importance in society overtaking the importance of literature. I do gotta say that the movie version did it did have more emphasis on the censorship issue, but because it did use technology in its own way, but it that also had media as like an opiate of the masses type of effect. Okay, I got a few more comments. I have Hi Lady Jane Books. I'm gonna just watch the first episode of the TV adaptation. An episode. Yes, I didn't realize there was a TV show. I'll have to look into that. And then I have a hello, Rossignol. Is that Jonathan Rossignol? Is that? I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. Sorry if I'm messing it up. Yeah, so that kind of, I'm not sure if that was a good or bad summary of the book, but I believe that would be the end of the end of the non-spoiler section. Um, in terms of um, spoilers, I'm just trying to get my thoughts clear. I wrote a lot of stuff, a lot of notes down, but there's just a lot to talk about, and just picking the first thing to say, that's one of the things that I did not think of to how to start. Um, yes, this book definitely is a critique on censorship, as I said. Um, in terms of, let me read some of my notes. So yes, now for let me go through a summary of the movie that I watched. The movie does have it was released in 2018. I saw it on HBO. And it has Michael B. Jordan as the main character, Guy Montag, and the other character who played Captain Beatty. I recognize him from other things as Michael Shannon, and the the areas where there was differences definitely involved more around which characters were introduced into the show, into the movie, and which ones were introduced into the book. Like the book, Guy is married to a woman named Mildred, and she's a bit. She's one of the typical people in the society who is more or less addicted to media. One of the things that society has become is very focused on. It definitely catered more towards short attention spans. Um, One of in the book, it did elaborate that books were um, books were replaced by radio. Radio was replaced by movies. Movies was replaced by television, and yeah, everything was definitely more condensed into more digest. So um, books themselves, it's hard to explain, but books themselves weren't specifically outlawed. People could read any book that they wanted, but it was all essentially taking, one way to explain it is you take the entire Harry Potter series, all 7 books, and condensed it down into no more than a paragraph. And that was what they considered the book. It was a digest, something that um, wasn't, that gave you what you needed to know. It didn't, it didn't allow for creativity, or it didn't express the author's creativity in creating the works. Uh, yeah, so, and another point that is very interesting, that in the book and the movie, where they had the similarities, was that it wasn't government that had introduced this society onto people. It was the people themselves that essentially asked for this, voted this system in, or not voted this system in, but uh, the consumerism had developed into this um, short attention span society. Um, everything was everything is fast. it was all everything on was headlines, all articles, just headlines, just the stuff that you need to know, the flashpoints, and it just got to a point where any any and the government did exploit this, where all leisure time was essentially discouraged, and so that everyone was always doing something, something that didn't give people time to sit down and reflect. One of the areas in the book was that the girl that I mentioned, Clarice, who had befriended and turned Guy Montag's world upside down, she had mentioned that her uncle or grandfather, I forget which, had spent 2 days in jail for driving under the minimum speed limit. The minimum speed limit was 50 or 60, and he had been driving 40 miles an hour. And because of that, he spent 2 days in jail. So essentially the average speed that people are driving at is so fast, like 90 miles an hour, something ridiculous, where people are, when they're driving in their own cars, all that they can think about is driving safely. If they're even thinking about driving safely, they're just thinking of what they're doing at the specific time. Advertising billboards were stretched for 2 miles long so that people could get the time to see what is being advertised. People that if they're driving, if you notice billboards today, they're like 40 feet long and big, and you get, sometimes you're driving 60 miles an hour, they go by fast. Well, people are driving so fast that they need to have like 2-mile long billboards, just so people can see what is being advertised. That's remarkable. Where even the having the leisure time to sit, to drive and think is discouraged. Some of the technology was having parlor walls, which is essentially large TVs that take up the entire wall space, and in homes having multiple of these, and people just sitting in their homes just watching multiple TVs in their living room, so that their mind is consumed by multiple things all at once. This TV show over here, another TV show over here, something else over here, and becoming so engrossing with what is entertaining them, and they're not being able to think of what is going on. And so that's the effects of that was definitely shown by the character Mildred, Guy's wife. And I'll take a little bit of a break. I got a couple more comments. Lady Jane Book said, I watched it on TV. Okay, it was a movie. Okay. Now I get you. And Drew book reviews. So many shows on my to watch list. And I get the TV show eventually. The show, the movie was, parts of it were depressing, but it's definitely more worth it for the message, I would say, for the version that I watched. I know that there is a 1960s or 1970s adaptation. I have not seen that yet. From the trailer that I saw, I do believe it does follow the book closer than the 2018 version. Yeah, so um, so yes, back to the so the so with Mildred being so consumed by the entertainment industry, and so much so that Mildred even calls the characters on the TV shows her own family, and that it just gives you a that sense that things aren't like having the TV as characters as part of your own family, rather than the people who actually are your family, kind of shows how much media has ingrained itself into society. The artwork and music is made in such a way that it's just colors. There's no real essence to artwork or music. It's just sound. There's no lyrics in music. It's just pretty notes floating around. It's the artwork is just color, and like in doesn't make it like a more abstract, nothing that could offend people, which is where the whole society took on this censorship of the burning the books, um, where people were it society latched on to the loud minority, people who were offended by certain books, said these should not be in society, and so those books went out. This other group, this other demographic said this book offends us, so this should be not in society. And it's kind of interesting in that some of that is being seen now, such as some I've seen where some school systems have they're no longer allowing books such as To Kill a Mockingbird in the school because it makes people feel uncomfortable. Well, that's the entire point of the book, to make people feel uncomfortable in how they're with what's going on. Yes, Jonathan, cancel culture equals loud minority. Yes, like it's some that too is also seen in society now, where people are being offended um, by things that shouldn't be that people are offended by such things. Well, if they're offended, then that's their own issue to deal with, not society's to address it for them. But society did in this universe. That's exactly what happened. Um, even to the point where medical journals that said that smoking is bad for you, and gives you lung cancer and all these health detriments. That was offensive to smokers. So the medical journals were discarded, and now people are happy smokers. That in both the movie and the book, the happiness or the of society of people, excuse me, was what was most important. Um, if one of the lines from Captain Beatty, if I say it, I'm going to paraphrase it, but um, books, like literature books, whether they're fiction or whether they're philosophical, they're confusing, and confusion makes people angry. And that's in terms of the literature books. Um, and other one philosophy, if for philosophy, yeah, excuse me, in philosophy books, um, one philosopher is saying his way of living is correct, and this other one knows nothing, and this other philosopher is attacking a third philosopher. Well, then the philosophers are just getting angry at each other, and and they're just confusing people who are reading these philosophy books. So just get rid of the philosophers altogether. So anything that gives people like two sides to think about, like one philosopher has this side, another philosopher has this side. Well, if you get rid of both sides, no one has to think about anything. And that's where the government in Fahrenheit 411 has exploited this society, both in the movie and the book. One of the things that in the book, excuse me, in the movie, Guy Montag, his character has been changed where he's not married. He lives alone in his own house, but their society has become a bit of a surveillance state where it doesn't explain if it's every household or just positions of authority have this all-seeing camera called Yuxi. Well, anyway, it's sort of like an Alexa or Google Home, where you ask it you can ask it questions and it will give you answers. It has access to the internet and can provide you with the current media. But it also surveils, and even when turning it off, it still spies on you and all of your actions, which that's a message for the surveillance state, or criticism of a surveillance state. That's a sub message from the movie in its own. But because of this technology was introduced into the movie itself, because the guy Montag, in the book, he has a bit of not a mental breakdown, but he kind of goes on a rage when so this is in the book. He goes on a bit of a rage by saying how stupid people are with they're consumed by media. That people used to enjoy books, and that the and that just no one sits down and enjoys something. This segment in the book does go a little bit more into some other criticisms, which not exactly sure if I should really be getting into that now, because that is a whole other thing that societies also, that real society is actually also dealing with now. So that's that also gets into a bit of a modern day discussion. But guy with his wife has some friends over, and he's reading from a poet from a poetry book that he had stolen from a house that he was his firehouse was meant to burn down, or this house that had books, and they were burning it down. He had stolen this one book, and when he had his little verbal rager, he one of his wife's friends had reported him, and in the movie, the technology Yuxi had also reported him, to lead to the same result of his firehouse being sent on a call to then burn Montag's own house down. So that's where some of the differences had resolved itself into converging at one place. The one, before I continue on, I do have another couple more comments I'll bring up. Jonathan, I was disappointed that there was no mechanical hound in the movie. Yes, that definitely. I had noticed that when I watched the movie, and I definitely do believe that the hound in the book was definitely in a used more to show how intimidating technology had become and what it could be used for, how it technology had evolved into like, because some of this was like, this technology, while being sci-fi, also helped create this dystopia type of world in the book. And then, however, those DARPA robots are a good example of life imitating art in that regard. DARPA, the DARPA robots, not exactly sure if that was part of the movie. Not exactly sure, but oh yes, now that now I realize what you're talking about. Yes, the dogs, the mechanical dogs that doing the parkour. Yes, I remember. Yes, that I remember seeing a meme about that where it compared those to the mechanical hound. Yes, now I remember. So in the movie, where Clarice was a older teenage girl in the movie, she's has a different role in the movie, where she's a like 20s something woman, and she's part of a sort of resistance, but she's kind of in between being a snitch for Captain Beatty, getting the information to getting information of these houses that are part of the resistance that have books, where where one of the houses that Beatty and Montag burn, it's a stash house of books, containing a library of books, and the woman in the house, an older woman, essentially martyrs herself for these books, and it's definitely one of the instances that that shocks Montag, in that people would die for books. So it's that's one of the catalysts that gives Montag that he needs to do something to do his part in resetting society. So Clarice, she's given this one house up in hopes of getting her life back and not being what is the law-abiding subjects, essentially, are referred to as natives in society. The people that harbor books, that disseminate books through technology and physical books, they're considered eels. It's a bit. It definitely makes it more of a us versus them type of feel when thinking about it. So it definitely brings it more of a are you on the side of good or are you on the side of bad, where essentially being on the majority, the natives, is the side of bad in this dynamic. And she's who she brings in Montag when he has his revelation that he's needs to change sides, brings him to the rest of the other people who are fighting to keep books alive, keep book history, keep whatever they can, literature alive. And that's where another area where the my computer. Another area where the book and movie differentiated was that there's this technology called the Omnis. Omnis. I forget how it's if it's spelled with a U or an S, or a U or an I. But it was essentially the holy grail of preserving all literature, and this and that was what that was the goal of the authorities, was trying to eliminate this technology so that they would maintain full control over the populace. And that ended up being the fight for, or that ended up being the fight throughout the big conflict. Whereas the book kind of used a nuclear war that destroyed society, and Montag and this group of educated outcasts who had memorized a lot of books would essentially pass on their knowledge to future generations to then rebuild society that way. The movie was using this technology that would embed literature into DNA to be read with another technology, and essentially allow books to be spread universally more. So rather than waiting to rebuild society over generations, this would be the fight to rebuild society now. That was my take on what the ending of the movie. Couple more comments. Yes, this what I am talking about is the new 2018 adaptation. About the movie stuff compared to the 66 version. I don't know the 1966 version yet. I've only gone through. I've only seen the 2018 so far. I think the 1966 one, at least from me, is still like either a renting or a buying. So I just haven't done. I was going for the free one for now. And then 2018 adaptation completely missed the underlying message. Novel, more of a subversion of the original. Yes, I do agree that it was. It did change what the message was. It essentially it was taking on more of the in a more broad stroke. It was addressing censorship rather than the specifics of how censorship became the norm in society. It's true. Yeah. So the trailer that I saw for the 1966 version, it was about like a 5-minute trailer, I think, and it definitely looked more. I included a lot of what the 2018 version excluded. What to watch? Yeah, I'll definitely be watching it at some point. And it's I think that it's, and for me, I like seeing multiple adaptations, whether they're new or old. One of the, like for me, like I like the Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express, because there are so many versions to actually see. So it's definitely seeing what's like every version where it's from the Poirot television series with David Suchet to the newer one with I know his name, I just don't remember his face. Or I know his name, I don't remember. I remember him, I just can't get the name off the top of my head. But each of those have a few adaptations that I really like to look at and compare. Be interesting to hear what you think. Yeah, I'm probably do a recorded video and then edit that rather than doing another live show. But it's I'll definitely give my take on when I do see the the 1966 version. But yeah, so the technology, the way that that characters were introduced, the differences in how each each supporting character kind of changed how society was, or how the plot went forward. It definitely differed because in the book, one of the plots between that Montag and this a man named Faber, who was he was someone who remembered how things were before society became what it was, before books were banned, and he had his own stash of books and that he kept hidden. And when Montag became, or changed his view on things, and he and Faber had concocted a plot to essentially undermine authority by planting books into the houses of other firemen and reporting them for having books, and so that the people of authority are the ones that get attacked by their own system. But that was a short-lived plan, having only planted a book in one other fireman's house before he himself was essentially victimized by the system, where he had to burn down his own house as like a humiliation by the captain. And where another instance where the movie and the book differed, after burning down his own house, in the book, Montag actually sets his own captain. He kills his own captain, but it's in a way where his Captain Beatty didn't really fight to save himself. He was antagonizing Montag, even though Montag still had the flamethrower, which was the tool of the firemen. So it's essentially the society that had worn on Captain Beatty so much that he did not care. He wanted to die, but that did not happen in the movie, at least the one that I saw, where Montag escapes. He's about to be taken in, but attacks another fireman, one of his subordinates, and then runs and escapes, but gets chased down. And at the end, when he does release the Omnis, which that Montag essentially sacrificed himself to release the Omnis into the world, and then he himself is killed by his own captain. So having that it's a mixed ending in the movie where it's um, society has hope for coming back to what it's supposed to be, but at the expense of a character that um, has grown into a better person. Um, at least that's the way that the movies is supposed to have. That was the plan for the movie, to have you see Montag. Um, so yeah, those were some I meaning to. So some of the things that I went through. I did a whole lot of note taking when I was watching the movie, and um, so I was got to make sure I covered all my topics that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, that was about it um, for things that I had planned on talking about. Um, let's see, go through the comments. Looks like no more new comments yet. Um, so yeah, for everyone's watching, um, have you read the book? Have you watched either version? Um, clearly, Jonathan has, and Lady Jane Books said that she watched the version. Um, so yeah, whether it's if you're watching this on the playback or through the live, definitely love to hear in the comments what you thought of the book, what your interpretations of either the book or the movie, or both, your interpretations of what the differences mean. Um, I'd love to hear from you. Um, it is getting a little towards the end of the hour, um, but yep. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Again, this has been my very my first live stream, at least live stream that I did on my own channel. So, yep, Jason Cross reads books. I do have a Discord and a Twitter and an Instagram that I will be posting more on. I did have a long break for personal issues. Not um, at for first part of the year, it was just life getting in the way of things, and then towards the last couple months, I did have a my dad did die. He did pass away very unexpectedly. So I did still recovering from that shock. Um, so it's yeah. I As I said in the beginning of the live stream, um, editing has been a something that I've not really been able to really do or have the attention span for as of late. So in terms of keeping my channel active, even though it was like a 6 month hiatus or so, um, live streaming was essentially the way to go. Um, but that now that I hope to be back a little bit more. active on Discord. You can join me there. I will, once this, when I'm able to, I'll drop a link down into the comments section, the description section, with the links to Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads. If I'm missing any other socials. But yes, I'll have all of it down, and we can continue talking there, or posting things there, whether it's book related or not. So yeah, I'll hope to see you there. Thank you very much for watching, everybody.